Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Overnight Success. Today, I'm joined by my OG, Ronami Ogulu, COO of the Spaceship Collective, and all-round superstar. So, first question: if you could rewind time or you could fast forward time, which would you pick and why?
I would rewind time.
Why?
I feel like if I knew what I know now 10, 20 years ago, I would do a few things differently.
Okay. Hi, my name is Mayowa. I'm a lawyer, writer, and journalist, and I'm also editor-in-chief of Culture Custodian. Overnight Success is an interview series where I speak to some of my favorite creators and entrepreneurs on the journeys and stories that got them to where they are. That is, young, successful people doing interesting things. I don't think there's any such thing as an overnight success, or is there? Find out more by watching this video. And when you're done, please subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, and share it with as many people as possible. Thank you. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Overnight Success. Something I find interesting-ish about you is obviously you have a very diverse background.
It's interesting-ish.
Your dad's from Port Harcourt. Your mom is half Edo, half Yoruba. And so I'm curious, how did that kind of shape your childhood and your outlook on life?
I think it's less about where my parents are from and more so about what their background was and what their upbringing was. And I personally think my mom was crazy. I would never do what she did. Like, she got married at 23, moved from Lagos to Port Harcourt to marry a man and start a whole life.
Where did they meet?
NYC. She served in Port Harcourt. Yeah, so they met, got married. The rest is history. So she moved to Port Harcourt. She barely had any friends there, no family there. And yeah, so they did the whole thing, young couple. And her upbringing was interesting because my grandpa, who is super liberal, like he helped Fela build Kalakuta. He was a DJ, on-air personality. He was outside. And my grandma was also in her own trajectory. She's a Wazobia. She speaks Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba. So there's nobody that didn't used to come to the house. So it was very open, and I think my mom was in tune with people from different walks of life. And my dad is one of those people that went into dating and I guess marriage with I guess he saw her and he's like, okay, I definitely want to marry someone who I know can bring something that I will never have or I will never be able to bring. And that's kind of how it was. And my mom had a clear vision on what she wanted her life to be like with her kids. She knew how she wanted us to grow up. She knew she wanted us to be well-rounded. She knew she wanted us to speak languages. Like, she set it out and she went for it.
Okay, so you spoke about your grandfather. You know what your grandfather means to me, because it's something we always talk about.
So sad. I feel like you would choose him over me.
No, I won't choose him over you.
Really?
No, I won't choose him over you. But obviously, he's. I think he's obviously one of the greatest Nigerian critics that's ever lived. So, out of curiosity, what was it like growing up with him as your grandfather?
It's very interesting because my experience of him and my mom's experience of him are so different. Or rather, my uncle, who's my mom's younger brother, all the time, like now I would talk to my grandpa on the phone and I'll answer and be like, "Hi, gorgeous." And he'd be like, "Is that my dad you're talking to?" And I'll be like, "Love you." And he'd be like, "Love you too." And my uncle would be like, "He never told me love you when I was growing up." So it's two different people that, But I guess on like the musical side, I just used to remember him writing all the time. He used to literally, I've never seen him without a pen and paper on his desk. And so I used to read a lot because he had a lot of books. And he used to make me like read all the articles he would write and be like, "Oh, you'll be my first editor." So I would read the articles before he sent it to his actual editor when he used to write the columns for the Guardian.
Yeah.
And then he had the High Life, My Life, he had that column. And then he had his jazz nights in OJ's in Surulere at the time. Was OJ's in Surulere? I think so. So he used to do that. So all I knew of him was we used to be so excited about what he would write next and who he was gonna tell me about after he goes to OJ's every Wednesday. And like that was my thing. My brother had a different experience of him because his experience of him was like immersing in all of his music. I personally didn't really immerse in his music at the time. I wasn't really that interested, to be honest. I was more focused on the writing part. So my brother had like a well-rounded, he would sit in his garage and all he would do is listen to music all night because they would put up the gen at midnight or something. So he would sit in the car and just be jamming the whole night. So we had I feel like all of us kids took bits of him, which is, I guess, has helped us now, because now I feel like we're all interested in so many different things in life in general. And my grandma had her own thing. I feel like what I learned from her is the importance of connecting with people. So from the bread seller to the police officer, everybody was you remember her from secondary school?
I was literally about to say that.
Everybody was her friend. It was wild.
She was so personable. So it was like the type of thing where when she came in, she was so friendly. And you know, one of the things I remember is like when Burna went back to Corona to perform, because he had always
back.
He went back, but he went back some years later. And I remember because it was type of thing.
It wasn't the 50th anniversary.
No, it wasn't that. He went back. But the thing is, because I remember I had that conversation where it was like, because I know he would never have gone back on his own will. But apparently Mr. Musa called your grandma.
Like I remember
Mr. Musa called your grandma and she basically made it happen. So, and it's like,
by the way, Mr. Musa is, who was he? Nurse? Doctor?
Yes, school nurse / doctor. Yeah. And she just had like, that's just something I remember, just because I think maybe because they lived in Festac too. She was always like making that journey. She was always making that journey to Agbara to come and see you guys. And I think obviously she understood that, you know what, part of like, if these people are going to be good to my grandkids, it will come because of obviously maybe personal relationship with her, because they like me. So I think like she cultivated those relationships. So you saying that, I don't like, it's just funny because obviously the version of her I know, that is like literally in alignment with that.
Even now, like in all of our houses in whatever country, you see her calling our concierge in London, how is your son? I'm like, what? How did you get his number? So till today she's still like that.
Okay, so now that leads me to something. So you're from Port Harcourt?
Yes. Well, I grew up in Port Harcourt. I'm from Ahoda West.
Okay, so as someone from Rivers State, what was it like growing up in Port Harcourt?
Oh, it was amazing. I tell people all the time, like, that if I could replicate my childhood for my kids in a heartbeat, I would. Because we literally it might sound weird for some people, but like, we grew up in a bubble, like this social bubble, where obviously we knew what was happening in the world and all of that stuff, but like a few parents, it was a bunch of parents, and there were like 3 or 4 different schools where we all went as kids. And every weekend somebody was having a party. During the week there was ballet, there was karate class, there was native play, there was dance class. So we were always busy. And it was just such a fun time. Like we had summer camps, we had Christmas parties, Christmas carol nights. It was fun. And every summer, obviously, because my mom did her travel immersion things, so we would spend 3 months in France every summer. So it was great. PH was great.
So that takes me to the next question. So coming from such a creative family, and I think there's something you have spoken about, and there's also something your mom has spoken about in terms of trying to ensure that you guys were very well rounded. So from like taekwondo to the language immersion courses and stuff like that. So how important do you think those experiences were in honing, you know, you guys' creativity?
I think they were everything. I feel like that kids are such sponges, and I feel like there's things that even now I don't realize how much impact they had on my life till it's happening now. So for example, we were younger and I remember going ice skating, and for the life of me I couldn't understand why my sister wanted to go ice skating so much. But like now I had an event where I had to go to Flippers, and I haven't skated in so long, but once I put the shoes on,
muscle memory.
I was literally going, and I was the star of the event. I was like, okay, run me my check. Okay. But like, down to stuff as trivial as that, like we did so much. Like we did art class. That has helped now because I do design. Nisi does car design, product design. Damni drew comic books. We did, he used to surf as a kid. That helped his muscle movement. Like all these things, stamina, like you don't even realize how as an adult, things like that change your life, really.
Okay, so now, quick one. If you had to give a TED talk on like how to foster creativity in kids, what would you be saying?
TED talk?
Yeah, like a TED talk on how to foster creativity in kids using you guys' experiences.
I would call you. No, but for real, and what would be the heading?
It's whatever you want it to be. So how...
I would definitely call you to give me like a heading, for sure.
Okay.
But I feel like the general message would be connecting the dots, really. Because a lot of parents, I find, worry so much about, oh, they have to go to this specific school because either they want to do it for optics, or they want to do it because this is where all their friends' kids are going, or they want to do it based on, like, I think for me, it's more about identifying the skills in your kids and being able to harness those skills. Like even down to people who have kids that are on the spectrum that don't realize they're on the spectrum. And those could be potentially the smartest people in the world, right? Being able to harness what your kids' strengths are and molding them to become the most successful version of themselves, as opposed to the most successful version of what the world says or whatever fake textbook. All that stuff is made up. Like I would literally, the heading will probably be 90% of the stuff you think you know is made up about raising. It's made, like, who makes the rules about that?
Okay. So I meet you, first time I meet you, JS1, year 7. And obviously we would spend...
Love at first sight.
We would spend 6 years together. And I think one of the things I would say, because it's like, there was always a very high sense of responsibility. And by a final year, you would go on to become head girl. So, talk to me.
Why? I was so pressed. Was I pressed?
But so, I'm very curious about where the sense of responsibility comes from and how that experience of being head girl, how it shaped you.
I think the sense of responsibility came from just like how I was raised. And again, it's down to harnessing the strengths that your children have and molding it. Like I feel like my parents knew responsibility was never going to be my brother's forte with regards to like so from a young age we went to boarding school in Lagos. We lived in Port Harcourt, so we would have to travel every half term, every holiday, and I was always the one my mom gave the pouch with passports. And it's like, she would walk us to the plane, hand it to me. As we get off the plane, my grandma is meeting us at the plane and collecting it from me. It was never anybody else. So I felt responsible to like keep guard it, make sure both of them are fine. And then Damni's responsibility was always, I never picked up my luggage from the luggage belt. That was never my business. So he would get all the luggage, wheel it out. Nisi was just living her best life. She didn't even know what was happening. She wakes up, she's in school. She wakes up, she's at home. So I feel like for me, it was always that. Like, it would go to parties. It would be, oh, Ronnie, where are your siblings? Where's Nisi's shoes? Make sure Damni has his things. I don't know. I feel like they knew from when I was young that I guess it started off because my siblings would call me a snitch. I'll be the one that will go and report everybody. But like I felt the need to supplement that because they were so, like, now you see it's both of them. I find them so eccentric as human beings, and I feel like even if I wanted to be eccentric, I know that I can't be because somebody needs to pull them together. and like all their crazy ideas, somebody has to like wrap it up into boxes that can sell.
So basically, even you being the one in the middle, you're kind of like the balancing act.
Basically.
You're the one that kind of just, when they're being too wild, you pull them back and
Yeah.
like kind of hone it in. But it also means that you help them like obviously express themselves. Like, so again, it's like if one of them has a crazy idea, they might bring it to you and you might be like, this is crazy. But then maybe you might take 60 or 70% of it and then kind of run with
And what
it.
you just described is how every album rollout starts. Quite literally.
So you're a commercial student, and that would, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you remember because in year 12 they put us in the same class.
What?
They mix red and blue up.
Red and blue.
So they mix the art and the commercial class up, and then you would go on to go to Durham and get like a degree in business finance. So talk to me about where that interest, which is funny because obviously it links to what you're doing these days. But talk to me about where that interest comes from.
I knew I hated science. I knew I couldn't draw a stick figure. So I feel like, especially in Corona, there's like 3 boxes. Anybody that went to Corona knows this. You're either arts, science, or commercial. And I felt like I knew those 2 were self-eliminated. So commercial was the way to go. And I was pretty good. I found the economics, business, those things came easy to me. I didn't love math, but I could pass it. So for me, it was a no-brainer, and I was like, okay, cool. I knew I hated accounting, so I was never going to do anything that was strictly accounting, but everything else, you know, it was all right.
Okay, so I think one thing people don't realize about you, so I think people see you obviously working, doing the type of work you do, and they don't realize like the past life where you were like a banker, essentially. And that links because it's something you said that like, you used to have the ambition of wanting to be World Bank president.
Yeah.
And so after uni, after your master's, you came back to Nigeria, you worked at FSDH, you worked at AFDB. So out of curiosity, like what prompted the change in ambition?
You know, nothing really prompted. I think when I was in A-level school was when the Burna Boy train was really starting to move. I was in South Wales at the time. And my mom would call me and she'd be like, oh, we have a video shoot. I have no idea what he's gonna wear. Some guy has come with clothes. I feel like they're all fake. Can you please figure it out? I'm like, okay, cool. How much can you send me? She'd be like, £100. And I'm like, how many looks? It's like 5 or 4. I'm like, okay, so I'm on ASOS scrolling for my life, all these sales. And at that time, I loved vintage shopping. So I would go to charity shops. Like for me, that was a sport. I used to be so excited to go to cancer research store. Or like, I loved it. So I would go and I would go through all the racks. And I remember for like the party video, we're talking one day and he was like, oh, I asked him, I'm like, what do you want for Christmas? And he's like, I really want those like Versace shades that Biggie wore.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I'm like, okay, fine. So I went on eBay and I found it maybe for like £20 or something. I was so excited. So I brought his present and I got myself the shirt, like the Versace shirts.
Yeah.
That was from a charity. That was £5 from a charity shop. And so I got home for Christmas and I was like, oh, okay, Merry Christmas. Here's your gift. And then he's like, okay, I'm taking the shirts as well. And this is my look for the video. And I'm like, my baths. And then the rest was history. And it kind of stuck. And then we just kept building on that persona and building. So I guess I started off dressing him not because I wanted to style. I didn't even know styling was a job when I started dressing him. I did it because my mom called me. And I mean, you know. So when I moved back to Nigeria, I did that on and off while I was in uni. I would still send clothes. Budgets would go up every year. You know, from 100 it became 300. I would start balling. I started going to H&M, you know. So it was fun. And then when I moved back, I was doing FSDH stuff. And I would have to lie on some days when he has to be on set. I'm like, oh, I'll call in sick because I know he has to shoot a video and I have to be there. So that's how that one kind of happened. AFDB, same thing. In fact, from there, I would say I moved back 2016. 2017, I managed to do all of this stuff. I feel like 2018 was really the turning point because I was like, fine, I'm gonna leave FSDH, take 3 months of work. I had this other, like, I was applying to the AFDB job and all of those things. And then my mom was like, oh, you can come and help me then. I'm like, cool. Just forward me your emails, my Yahoo mail, forward me your emails, and it's fine. So she started forwarding me 1 email a day, 3 emails a day. One day she said, my dear, your ticket is in your email. Meet us in America. I'm like, for what? And that's how it is. I went on tour, we got on the bus. It was 15 of us on a 12-sleeper bus. And then we just carried on from there. I got my AFDB job while I was in that bubble. And I'm like, my second job in Nigeria paying me in dollars, I move. So I took that job. I was doing both at the same time. At this point, I wasn't just styling anymore. I was now seeing, I was immersed in it so I could see all the cracks. And it was a lot of cracks. And my mom's hair was falling apart. Like, there's only so much one person can do. So I started writing a list of all the cracks I saw. And then I would make a note in my head and I'm like, I need to fix that, I need to fix this, I need to fix that. Down to like changing our company, creating a company email. Like as simple as that. She was funneling through management@yahoo.com. And I'm like, for what, babe? So just like that, built it out, taught myself a lot of things. Which again, I give kudos to my days in the library and just that same sense of responsibility that I just felt like if I didn't do it, nobody else would. Like I would print merch, put it in a suitcase, drag the suitcase, put it on the bus, get to the venue, unpack the suitcase, hang it up in the venue, go to the lighting room. I would sit with the lighting, house lighting, by the way, which is a random guy, whoever shows up to work that day in the venue. I would sit, watch him operate the lights. I would say, no, spotlight. I started learning all the names of all the lights.
Yeah.
Screen, I'll be like, what video is this? How do you operate this content thing? I would download the software on my own laptop, start learning how to use it. So all of those things, because I didn't like how the show looked.
Yeah.
And, like the music is amazing, but it doesn't look like a good show. So yeah, that's kind of how everything spiraled. And now I have the job I have.
So one of the things I've always been curious about, and this is obviously as someone who knows you, like, because I knew the point where Damini wasn't making music anymore.
Yeah.
And then I knew the point where, and it's crazy because I still remember like Freedom Freestyle. And I remember that because like it was the type of thing where periodically I'll text you, always like, I hope Damini's making music. Because he was, in high school, he was the most talented person I had ever seen.
It's so funny because I never understood, when you used to say that, I never understood the gravity because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I feel like in boys' hostel, what you guys used to do there, till tomorrow, nobody wants to tell me. Like, I feel like you guys had this very secretive, I don't even know what the hell.
It was just, so the thing is, it was just witnessing him up close. And again, there are things I remember. So I remember him, for instance, freestyling one day outside. And we had a senior who used to say ba a lot. And he kind of basically took that and obviously kind of insulted him by calling him like back shape, that type of thing. And it was like the funniest, but like, it's like, yo, that's this guy's brain so quick. So in high school, there was no one because...
What was that, like a freestyle?
Yeah, it was freestyle. It was just
in one drum.
Yeah, everyone was just in one drum and he was just freestyling. Wow. They were just freestyling. And so in high school, you know, like everyone, when you go to high school, you see people who are talented at like different things. They're like the guys who are like obviously good at football. They're the guys who are good at athletics. They're the guys who are good at music, arts, whatever. So for me, in the 6 years I had been in that school, I had never seen anyone who I felt was as talented as he was. And so when obviously he left and he wasn't making music, I would just be like, periodically I'll check him, be like, oh, yo, like, hope your brother's still making music and that type of thing. And then you would just be like, oh, yeah, he's off that, he's off that. And then one day you didn't see anything, you just sent Freedom Freestyle. And it was like a thing, I was just like, oh my days, like this is so fucking fire. And it was like the type of thing I started, like obviously this is like BBM days, you just start forwarding into people. But then what I've always wanted to know, and this is obviously you like being so involved and close to it, when did you guys realize that this shit was real? Like, when did you guys realize that, okay, he's no longer, like, as per, this thing is actually real? Because I can imagine your mom stopping everything she's doing to obviously decide that she's going to support him. So that obviously tells me that, we're all putting our back into these things. But like, I would like to, from your point of view, the point where it was like, okay, this thing is actually real.
I would say the day my mom paid herself.
Okay.
Which was at some point at the end of 2018.
Okay.
That was the first time she ever paid herself working for Burna Boy. And at that point, I'm like, I literally had to sit her down. We're in the bank, and I said, you need to pay yourself. Like, it was an actual intervention for her. Because the whole time, and he didn't know the half of it, because it's like, when he was coming up, people would call her to book a show, and let's say it's in Warri, and they're like, oh, we're only gonna pay 100K, and she knows that he's not gonna wake up from his bed in Lagos
to go to
Warri for 100K when he has 100K on that. Like, do you get, like, he's not that. And so she would tell him it's 200K, and she would take out of her salary, because she was teaching she had her own language school, and she was teaching at the university in Port Harcourt at the time. So she would take out of her own money and pay him and add it and say it's 200K. And my dad would drive him to the show, drive him back home. Like, so that is the trajectory. So the day she literally signed, and it was check, she didn't believe in online banking, so she signed a check and wrote her name on the check and paid herself. And I'm like, now we're in business, mommy, welcome.
Okay. So you were talking earlier on about how effectively the high sense of responsibility made you a stylist. Because your mom called you, she trusted you to go and shop the baths.
But I always, fashion was the thing.
That's the question. So it's like, where the sense of style, because obviously there's a reason
that's why she called.
There's a reason she called you.
Yeah.
And it's something, because I mean, when I'm trolling you, I'll be like, best
Tell them I won best buffer.
She was best buffer, guys.
How many years running?
Like 6 years in a row.
Thank you.
So
yeah, I do.
So where did like the interest and like in fashion and style come from?
I would say from my mom and grandma. My grandma is still today is super, she loves. So when we used to stay with her in Lagos, I would literally just rummage through all her clothes, go through all her makeup. At the time, I thought I was gonna be Scary Spice. Spice Girls. I don't know what I was going through, but yeah. And my mom was very, very specific. In fact, at some point, my mom had a business where she was making clothes. At some point in her life, in her 20s, but she was so specific about the clothes that she put us in, and I was the only one that would complain, like, these shoes don't match my outfit, and I'm 3 years old and I'm crying. And my dad always used to tell me that was the only time that him and my mom would fight, in that period when she's trying to dress me up to go to school or nursery or whatever, and I'm crying because of a pair of shoes or jeans or trousers, and she's like, what is wrong with you? And she's screaming, and she's like, I will smack you. And my dad is like, you want to smack my daughter because of trousers? So that, I guess it started from that, but also just like absorbing both of them. I feel like, yeah, my mom had her own style. My mom started dyeing her hair from 13, cutting, she did that whole, what's that, is it Salt and Pepper? The one that had she had her Anita Baker era. She did it all. So I was in there with them, I think, anyway.
Okay, so, and then now, what does a stylist do? Because I see people, everyone's like, I'm a stylist, I'm a creative director. What exactly, in your own case, what do you do?
So a stylist, I'm not a stylist though.
Okay.
I don't even think, I feel like I can train people to be a stylist.
Okay.
But me, myself, solely being a stylist as a professional job, I feel like I would hate my life.
Okay, so you're more like what, creative director?
Yes, in that aspect,
yeah.
That's like,
yeah.
But creative director is different, and I guess a creative director is like a form of HR, if that makes sense. It's like being able to create a concept or I would say somewhere between a founder and an HR director. Okay. You come up with a concept and you have the idea, so you're able to pull in the right team. So it's like album, for example, I hear the music, speak to the artist, I come up with a concept for the project, like how I want the whole project rolled out. I'm like, cool, I need to shoot the cover this way, I need him dressed this way, I need the video content to be like this. So I see the whole thing.
Yeah.
So now it's my job to find the right people to fill in those gaps. Like find the right photographer that has the right style, the right graphic designer that has the right art style, the right videographer, and I pull them together and I say, this is my idea. I want you to shoot like this. I want him dressed like this. I go to the brand and say, I want this. I come up, in fact, what brands do I want to work with? Figure out what brands fit into this narrative I'm trying to create and push it forward. So that's literally just like coming up with the basics of an album rollout as a creative director. A stylist would be one of those jobs.
Yeah.
That spiel.
So basically you started out kind of unofficial stylist and then you kind of grew, the more you got involved with the thing, you kind of now evolved into a creative director.
Because I feel like my mom knew I was never going to leave my dream to help in the business if I didn't feel freedom. And I think that's one thing about me that's kind of contradictory to my personality. I don't like feeling like I'm in a box, even though I come off sometimes as very like so serious and very straight-laced. I don't like feeling like what's that thing when you're scared of tight spaces? Claustrophobia.
Yeah, claustrophobic.
Yeah. So she knew that. So I feel like she made an effort to create a space where I could create whatever job title I wanted and I could build the company how I wanted. She had done her bit. Like she had started building the band. She had started laying the groundwork. She had started working with Buki, who was there from like the early stages, right? So they had already started doing their thing. They had gone far before I even came in, like far enough in Nigeria on the continent, right? And when I came in, it was just, okay, what next? And how do I take this from here to the next level?
Okay. So...
But yeah, your question was, what does a stylist do?
You kind of answered it, don't worry. Okay. So when you are working with Burna on like his creative direction, so for instance, you guys have been on tour, like it's almost like he's been on tour like for the last like 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Like even you guys wouldn't have come back to Nigeria pandemic unless the pandemic happened. Yeah. So what are the factors you consider when you're kind of like obviously curating like that visual appearance?
I think the music is my biggest factor, because I always say this to him: nobody can put an album together as well as him. Like the thought he puts into every single transition musically, how the songs transition into each other. If he's doing a skit, there's an intention behind the skit. Sometimes I'm listening and I'm like, why is this skit here? My man and I are looking at each other in the studio like, why is this here? Like there's a skit on, I told them, for the life of me, I couldn't understand. It was before On Form, where it's something about my backwoods.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think it's before On Form. And for the life of me, I just didn't understand why it was there. But today, I see people commenting that line, and like it's a thing people say now. Like I don't get it. But he was so specific. Like, don't touch my shit. There's a reason why it's there. There's a reason why this song goes into this song. There's a reason why I put it like this, right? So nobody for me can do that for him, right? So once that happens, then everything else is secondary. Okay,
so I've witnessed a tantrum before, and in your house, and I've also, those like when you guys start deleting his tweets, and he's like, "Ronami, stop deleting my tweets." So what I'm curious about is when those moments happen, what's your style of like conflict resolution?
We don't resolve. There's no resolution.
So what, you guys just?
Yeah, I feel like we're siblings that don't really go through that whole like formal apology stage. It's just whatever. Like he knows that the thing is, Damini is self-aware, right?
Interesting.
He's interestingly self-aware, and his hindsight is 2020. It's so clear what his hindsight.
Okay, so another thing very interesting. So your mother, Mama Burna, as we all call her.
She has to warm up to that name, right?
Why she didn't like it?
She's so used to being called her name.
Or Auntie Bosse?
Like now it's like sometimes my name is Bosse. In the beginning, but now it's part of her journey.
Yeah.
So she loves it.
So there's a story that Burna's first tour, she insured it with her savings.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's more complicated than that.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need to go into like financial whatever.
She was involved.
So now you're there, you're seeing this happen. What does that do for you?
I mean, what it would do for anybody that has a family that they love and care about, immediately it's like it's fight or flight in that moment, because you're seeing your family going through something, trying to build something, and you look at yourself and whatever job you're working, it's not your father's company. So, and I say this all the time to my friends when they're down about their work. I'm like, it's not your father's company. At the end of the day, if anything happens to you, somebody will take your job tomorrow. So do what you love, do what you're passionate about. If that's your 9 to 5, if that's in someone else's company, great, but let it be for you and your own self-fulfillment, right? So it changed everything for me. That's getting to America and going through that tour and experiencing what she had just a fraction of what she had experienced for years. Like going through her emails, it was just jarring. It was so jarring. From tour bus company to venue hire to the equipment hire, threats, ultimatums. It was a lot. And it's like, okay, we need a system that works, and we need a system that's able to combat all of these things. And so that's kind of where I stepped in.
Okay. So I think I've heard you previously describe your family as like a group of friends.
Yeah.
And it's clear because like throughout the course of this conversation, we've been talking about, you spoke about your dad driving Damini to shows. Your mom obviously manages him. You're involved. Nisi first of all started as a visual artist, then she kind of started putting out, like, became a recording artist. And so you guys have all gone on this journey together, and it's obviously a very tight-knit family, even down to like, your grandparents. So how have you guys been able to do it that the familial bond has remained intact?
I actually wonder. I'm not sure. I think it's just by design. And I think as kids, even just with my 3 of us and my mom and dad, we grew up as like friends. It wasn't ever like, a lot of time when I would go to my other friend's house, I'm like, oh, let me call Bosse. They're like, you mean your mother? I'm like, sorry. Because I always have to forget that. But that's kind of how, and then there's Uncle T and Uncle T's kids, and Uncle T now comes on the road with us. Because what...
Yeah, I've been clocking that, yeah.
Yeah, because what Uncle T does, Uncle T is like a chameleon. He can morph into anything that's needed in that period of time. And I feel like my mom and my brother have the same temperament, which is like really cold or really hot, right? So, and that the flip side of that is they're the nicest people in the family. Like, Damini will walk into a room and greet every single person. I'm not like that. I will come in, I'm like, hi everyone, and then I'll sit down. He would actually go up to each individual.
But does that make you're not a nice person, or is it just because like, I
think I'm just different? Yeah, I think I'm just different. We're all, my point is, everybody brings something to the table, and it works. And I think it also works because we're all a bit crazy, so it works out. And it shows in the people we hire. Like, if you watch a bunch, there's like, all our band this tour have been putting out BTS content. And I spent like one day going through everyone's content, and I'm like, God is actually hilarious, because every single person on this team is not okay. Like they're
Knocked.
not. Then everybody's knocked, and even down to like the newest member of the team who just started on this tour. Like I hired someone at her first day of work was LA Stadium,
Mad.
and it's like. But then everybody just picks you up and you don't even realize that it's your first day, and if you fuck up, it's like, it's fine, it's cool. And then, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it works out because there's something, I don't know what it is, but there's something that we put out into the world that comes back in a positive way, which I thank God for. That is a God thing.
Interesting. So there's something I talk about a lot with another friend of ours, Jola. So it's about the course of geography. So the fact that you might be very good at XYZ, but just being in a place like Nigeria kind of just puts a ceiling on your potential.
Yeah.
And so your brother is, I don't think anyone has advanced the scope of what a Nigerian artist means more than he has in the last decade. And so obviously he's your brother, but you work with him. So what lessons do you think young artists who are looking at him and obviously aiming for that level of greatness, what lessons can they take from him and his career?
I feel like the biggest thing that's not obvious is he listens. And that's just remotely engaging with other artists, Nigerian, abroad, rapper, R&B. Artists don't listen. And I think his secret power is he lets everybody do their job. He knows that there's things he cannot do. So he's not trying to encroach in anyone's anything. It's like Namix, you're supposed to do this because I know I'm not good at handling XYZ. Ronnie, I've submitted my songs. Leave me alone. Go and do your thing. His MD, he knows that Grammy performance, cool. We do different versions of the performance. He listens to all the versions. I don't like this, add horns, take this out, take that out. But MD's role is his role. So he's smart enough to allow the people that we hire around him do their job because he trusts that we know what we're doing. So I think that is ultra important. And I don't know if there's a bias because we're his family or whatever, but I don't think so. I think and I always joke with him, I said, if I wasn't your sibling, you can't afford to pay me. So, and it's like, I was dressing you and I'm a master's degree holder, distinction at that, my dear. So I'm like, and I'm carrying your clothes and folding your boxers. Because in the beginning, I was everything. I would dress him, make sure his laundry was done when we're on tour, fold his laundry, pack his suitcase, make sure he has all his toiletries in the morning, make sure he's eating, like the whole 9 years. I was a glorified PA. And that's why when I hire, I'm like, it's important that you want to work. Today you can be steaming clothes, tomorrow you're in a meeting with the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, right? So it's important that you understand that life is dynamic and what is today can be different tomorrow.
You've spoken about obviously that him kind of obviously realizing what he needed to kind of become like a global star. For you, obviously on the back end, how did you upskill so that like you went from essentially working with someone who was a Nigerian artist to now an international artist?
In what way?
Just generally everything, because I can imagine that it's a steep learning curve. Like it's like obviously you go from doing shows in XYZ to now like, okay, we're doing like big production shows. And so for you, what was that process like in terms of just upscaling?
I think the hardest part of the process though was clashing with my mom because she always says that my department is outflow, her department is inflow. So as we go to different venue, in fact, not even different venue, it could be the same cab, but once I do something once, I want to do it better next time.
Yeah.
Even down to like all the content from the tour on his socials, this tour. It's like I've seen all the things that happened last tour and what the content looked like, and I look back and I'm like, ew. And so I knew I wanted something different, but then that means out of the tour budget, I need to now carve out an additional 20K on extra cameras that she never planned to spend.
Yeah.
So it's like, Ronnie, here you go again. Or I want to do a set that costs almost $1 million just to build, and I'm transporting it from venue to venue, and in each venue there's labor costs in each state.
Yeah.
And those labor costs can differ from state to state. So it's like you're going to Atlanta and your costs are cool, you get to Boston or Chicago and your labor costs are crazy, and you don't really, it's like, I thought we're just, in her mind, it's like, I thought you only asked for X amount to build the set. For her, she doesn't realize that there's other things that come with it. So all those conversations and having to battle that, I feel like it's always, that's when we fight.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel like that's the most, production-wise and touring-wise, that's the most jarring parts, but there's other things.
Okay, so we kind of reached the end of this interview. So I usually end by asking my guests 2 questions. So the first one, you're my imagine you're my producer for the day. So you can get me any guest in the world, whoever it is. So who would you like to see me have this conversation with?
Ooh.
It doesn't have to be one person. You can pick more than one.
Because I know you, I would say like a J. Cole.
Interesting.
Only because I feel like I've never heard him speak about certain things from like the perspective you speak to him about.
Interesting.
Of somebody who's like, and this is from somebody who has like absorbed his aura.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be a very interesting moment.
Okay.
In fact, I wouldn't mind interning with the camera crew.
Okay, and then final question. You sat down with me for about 45-ish minutes. You've allowed me to ask you a bunch of questions about your life and about your journey. Is there any question you have for me?
Wow. If you were not doing this, like this version of content, because I feel like for you, it's always been about disseminating information in whatever form you felt like. What is like your dream medium? Because like now about the comedy, I'm shocked and startled. What is, I feel like tomorrow I will hear something else. So what is like your, if you had no limitations, what would your medium be?
The thing is, I don't know that there's any definite answer to that, because I feel like it's like different things. Like obviously it will be written, so like a good part of it will be written, and that's like something obviously I'm still working on, because I just feel like, yeah, that's something I'm good at, and that's how I kind of obviously want to like disseminate that information. But I think now it will definitely be audio visual. There will now also be like an audio visual element of it.
Well, because of you or because of the way the world is moving?
Because of the way the world is moving, and I think like for certain stories it works better. So you want like, you kind of always want to meet people where they are, but you also want to like, you can show them with words, but you can also show them with pictures and with like voice in a way that
gesticulation.
Yeah, that
I hear it.
That's kind of, it connects, it resonates more than just like obviously reading words. So yeah.
Okay then. So what's our sign out tagline?
It's no particular sign.
Subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, guys, you heard her. Subscribe to our channel.
Success. Support my friend.
Okay. Thanks, Ronami, for this conversation. It's been a long time coming, and I'm happy I finally got to have it with you.
I was blackmailed.
And thanks a lot, guys, for watching. Catch you on the next episode next week. Bye.